Part 19 of the Military Journals of Two Private Soldiers, 1758 to 1775. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by F&H. The Military Journals of Two Private Soldiers, 1758 to 1775, by Abraham Tomlinson. Part 19. Lexington, 25th of April, 1775. We, Nathaniel Parkhurst, Jonas Parker, John Monroe, Jr., John Winship, Solomon Pierce, John Muzzy, Abner Meads, John Bridge, Jr., Ebenezer Bowman, William Monroe III, Micah Hager, Samuel Sanderson, Samuel Hastings, and James Brown, of Lexington, in the county of Middlesex and colony of Massachusetts Bay, in New England, and all of lawful age, to testify and say that on the morning of the 19th of April instant, about 1 or 2 o'clock, being informed that a number of regular officers had been riding up and down the road the evening and night preceding, and that some of the inhabitants, as they were passing, had been insulted by the officers, and stopped by them, and being also informed that the regular troops were on their march from Boston, in order, as it was said, to take the colony's stores then deposited at Concord, we met on the parade of our company in this town. After the company had collected, we were ordered by Captain Parker, who commanded us, to disperse for the present, and to be ready to attend the beat of the drum, and accordingly the company went into houses near the place of parade. We further testify and say that about 5 o'clock in the morning we attended the beat of the drum, and were formed on the parade. We were faced towards the regulars then marching up to us, and some of our company were coming to the parade with their backs towards the troops, and others on the parade began to disperse when the regulars fired on the company, before a gun was fired by any of our company on them. They killed 8 of our company and wounded several, and continued their fire until we had all made our escape. Signed by each of the deponents. Lexington, April 25th, 1775. I, Timothy Smith, of Lexington, in the county of Middlesex and the colony of Massachusetts Bay in New England, being of lawful age, do testify and declare that on the morning of the 19th of April instant, being on Lexington Common as a spectator, I saw a large body of regular troops marching up towards Lexington Company, then dispersing, and likewise saw the regular troop fire on the Lexington Company, before the latter fired a gun. I immediately ran, and a volley was discharged at me, which put me in imminent danger of losing my life. I soon returned to the common, and saw 8 of the Lexington men who were killed, and lay bleeding at considerable distance from each other, and several were wounded, and further saith not. Timothy Smith. Lexington, April 25th, 1775. We, Levi Mead and Levi Harrington, both of Lexington in the county of Middlesex and colony of Massachusetts Bay, in New England, and of lawful age, do testify and declare that on the morning of the 19th of April, being on Lexington Commons as spectators, we saw a large body of regular troops marching up towards Lexington Company, and some of the regulars, on horses, whom we took to be officers, fired a pistol or 2 on the Lexington Company, which was then dispersing. These were the first guns that were fired, and they were immediately followed by several volleys from the regulars, by which 8 men belonging to said company were killed and several wounded. Levi Harrington, Levi Mead. Lexington, April 25th, 1775. I, William Draper, of lawful age, and an inhabitant of Coleraine in the county of Hampshire and colony of Massachusetts Bay, in New England, do testify and declare that being on the parade of said Lexington, April 19th instant, about half an hour before sunrise, the King's regular troops appeared at the meeting-house of Lexington. Captain Parker's company, who were drawn up back of the said meeting-house on the parade, turned, and said troops making their escape by dispersing. In the meantime the regular troops made a huzzah, and ran towards Captain Parker's company, who were dispersing. And immediately after the huzzah was made, the commanding officer of said troops, as I took him, gave the command to said troops, "Fire! Fire! Damn you, fire!" And immediately they fired, before any of Captain Parker's company fired, I then being within 3 or 4 rods of said regular troops, and further say not. William Draper. Lexington, April 23rd, 1775. I, Thomas Fessenden, of lawful age, testify and declare that on being in a pasture near the meeting house at said Lexington on Wednesday last, at about half an hour before sunrise, I saw a number of regular troops pass speedily by said meeting house, on their way towards a company of militia of said Lexington, who were assembled to the number of about 100 in a company, at the distance of 18 or 20 rods from said meeting house. And after they had passed by said meeting house, I saw 3 officers on horseback advance to the front of said regulars, when one of them, being within 6 rods of said militia, cried out, "Disperse, you rebels, immediately!" On which he brandished his sword over his head 3 times. Meanwhile the second officer, who was about 2 rods behind him, fired a pistol pointed at said militia, and the regulars kept huzzaing until he had finished brandishing his sword. And when he had thus finished brandishing his sword, he pointed it down towards said militia, and immediately on which the said regulars fired a volley at the militia. And then I ran off as fast as I could, while they continued firing till I got out of their reach. I further testify that as soon as ever the officer cried, "Disperse, you rebels," the said company of militia dispersed every way, as fast as they could, and while they were dispersing, the regulars kept firing at them incessantly. And further saith not. Thomas Fessenden. Lincoln, April 23rd, 1775. I, John Bateman, belonging to the 52nd Regiment, commanded by Colonel Jones, on Wednesday morning, on the 19th day of April instant, was in the party marching to Concord, being at Lexington, in the county of Middlesex. Being nigh the meeting house in said Lexington, there was a small party of men gathered together at that place, when our said troops marched by. And I testify and declare that I heard the word of command given to the troops to fire, and some of said troops did fire, and I saw one of said small party lay dead on the ground nigh said the meeting house. And I testify that I never heard any of the inhabitants so much as fire 1 gun on said troops. John Bateman. Lexington, April 23rd, 1775. We, John Hoare, John Whitehead, Abraham Garfield, Benjamin Monroe, Isaac Parks, William Hosmer, John Adams, Gregory Stone, all of Lincoln in the county of Middlesex, Massachusetts Bay, all of lawful age, do testify and say that, on Wednesday last, we were assembled at Concord, in the morning of said day, in consequence of information received that a brigade of regular troops were on their march to said town of Concord, who had killed 6 men at the town of Lexington. About an hour afterwards, we saw them approaching, to the number, as we apprehended, of about 1,200, on which we retreated to a hill about 80 rods back, and the said troops then took possession of the hill where we were first posted. Presently after this we saw the troops moving towards the North Bridge, about 1 mile from said Concord meeting house. We then immediately went before them, and passed the bridge just before a party of them, to the number of about 200, arrived. They there left about 1/2 of their 200 at the bridge, and proceeded with the rest towards Colonel Barrett's, about 2 miles from said bridge. We then, seeing several fires in the town, thought the houses in Concord were in danger, and marched towards said bridge, and the troops that were stationed there, observing our approach, marched back over the bridge, and then took up some of the planks. We then hastened our march towards the bridge, and, when we had got near the bridge, they fired on our men. First 3 guns, one after the other, and then a considerable number more. And then, and not before, having orders from our commanding officers not to fire till we were fired upon, we fired upon the regulars, and they retreated. On their retreat through the town of Lexington to Charleston, they ravaged and destroyed private property, and burnt 3 houses, 1 barn, and 1 shop. Signed by each of the above deponents. End of Part 19. Recording by F.N.H. Please visit cthulhupodcast.co.uk.